So here is the walkthrough of the quiz-like questions for Chapter 8. As we've done in the past, this isn't exactly all of the questions on the quiz, but represents at least an example of all the different types of question types that you would see. Modified slightly, of course. So, start with the top one here. At the end of the day, the cash register's record shows $1,252, but the count of cash in the cash register is $1,246. The correct entry to record the cash sales is what? Okay, so what I've put up here already is the template for both scenarios here. We have the template for cash being greater than it should be and template for cash being less than it should be. In this case, the cash register's record shows 1,252, which means that that's what it should be, but the actual amount of cash is 1,246, so the actual cash is less than what it should be. So regardless of which way it is, more or less, you can go ahead and put in the cash. So either way, either template, I can put in the cash, and then I can put in what the sales are. This is what should be in cash. Put that over here. And I'm doing it both ways here just so you can see. These are both given in the question here, right? So you're given what it should be here and what it actually is here. So when we plug that in, you see a debit and a credit, and it's not balanced. But which side would you need to add numbers to make this balance? Okay, you would need to add to the debit side because the credit side is currently greater. So if you need to add to the debit side, that means that cash is less than it should be, and you would use this template here. Okay, because obviously if we use this template here, that would just serve to make this even further out of balance. So if you're in doubt as to which one of these you should use, go ahead and plug in your cash and your sales and see whether the debit side or the credit side needs something added to it. And depending on which side needs something added to it, you would pick that particular template. If the debit side needs added to it, you would pick this one. If the credit side needs added to it, you would pick this one. And that makes it a little bit easier to see. So I'll go ahead and highlight that. That's the correct answer for this one. Okay, next question. Johnson Company decides to establish a petty cash fund with a beginning balance of $500. The company decides that any purchase under $100 can be processed through petty cash instead of using the voucher system. The journal entry to record establishing the account is what? Okay, well, to establish petty cash, you're just going to debit petty cash for the amount, and then you're going to credit the regular cash account for the amount, and that's it. Okay, that's all you have to do there. Just make sure that whatever the amount of your petty cash fund is the amount that you put into this template here. Okay, next question. Johnson Company has a $500 petty cash fund. At the end of the first month, the accumulated receipts represent $75 for delivery expense, $200 for merchandise inventory, and $30 for miscellaneous expenses. The fund has a balance now of $195. What is the journal entry to record the reimbursement of the account? Okay, so for reimbursing the petty cash account, this is where we're actually entering into journal entry form all of these expenses. So these will all be debits to some type of expense account, or a debit to, in this case, an asset account for merchandise inventory. Okay, so we have two expense accounts and one asset account that's going up. So I'll do the expense accounts first. We have debit to delivery expense, 75, a debit to miscellaneous expense, 30, and a debit to merchandise inventory for 200. Okay, so those are all my debits, and then the credit is going to be to cash for that amount, which you can see 200 plus 30 plus 75 is $305. Okay, so for your quiz, there are questions, more than one question like this, and the answer choices, instead of saying the journal entry to record the reimbursement and asking for the whole journal entry, the questions on this quiz generally will say the journal entry to record this amount includes, and it will list one of these four components of the journal entry as one of the right answers. And then the other answer choices will include components that are not part of this journal entry. So for instance, if I said, which one of these components is part of the journal entry, and then I had as answer choice A, credit cash for $305, that's how I would answer it. Answer choice A, credit cash, $305. So that could be any one of these four components here. Next question. A company wants to decrease its $500 petty cash fund to $250. What is the entry to reduce the fund? Well, if you look back up here, to create the fund, we have this journal entry, debit petty cash, credit cash. To decrease it or to eliminate the fund, we're just going to do the reverse of that. Okay? So we're basically wanting to decrease by $250. So now instead of a debit to petty cash, I'm going to do a debit to cash of $250 and a credit to petty cash of $250, and that will reduce the amount that is being kept in petty cash. Okay, next, a company has $60 too much in petty cash that was not accounted for by petty cash receipts. What is the correct procedure to basically reconcile this? Okay, well, if we have too much cash, we're basically going back up to this up here. Okay, if we have too much cash, then are we going to debit or credit the over-under account? Okay, if we have too much cash, then we're going to credit the over-under account for whatever the excess cash is. If we have not enough cash, then we're going to debit the over-under account for the difference. Okay, so I'm just showing you what it looks like as a whole journal entry up here. So down here we have too much cash. That would be this type of entry here. So we would credit over under amount of cash for $60. And if we were doing the journal entry here, depending on what we were going to do with that extra cash, if we were going to leave that in the petty cash account, then we would want to debit petty cash for $60. Okay? If instead of leaving it in there, we wanted to take that out and just put it in the regular cash account, we would debit cash for $60, and we would just be depositing that in our actual cash account. But your quiz is actually just asking about this component, whether you're going to debit or credit the over-under cash amount. And to determine that, you just look up here and decide which of these two scenarios you're in. Too much cash here, not enough cash here, and that will tell you whether it's either a credit on this side or a debit on this side, and what the amount is here. Okay, last question type. Ryan Company deposits all cash receipts on the day they are received and makes all cash payments by check. Ryan's June bank statement shows $19,361 on deposit in the bank. So that means that's how much is in your bank account. Ryan's comparison of the bank statement to its cash account revealed the following. We have a deposit in transit, which means it just hasn't been recorded by the bank yet, and we have outstanding checks. Additionally, we have a $35 check written and recorded by the company correctly, but was recorded by the bank as a $53 deduction instead of a $35 deduction. Okay, so if we start with what the bank balance is, $19,361, then we want to add to that deposits in transit, of 1,650, subtract any outstanding checks, okay, and then the bank charged us basically too much on this check. What was the difference? Well, it should have been 35. They deducted 53, so that's $18. Add $18 bank error. So basically what you would do there, you go into the bank, you say, hey, you deducted this amount, look at the return check here, it's actually for $35 instead of $53. You know, that would just be your proof to the bank that was their error. So once we do all of this, okay, we want to know what the adjusted cash balance should be. So that's just going to be adjusted cash balance, and it's going to equal 19,361 plus 1,650 for the deposits in transit minus 861 in outstanding checks plus $18 bank error gives us 20,168. Make sure I did that right. Let's see, 18, oops. Sorry, I actually wrote that one down wrong. That should have been 891. Okay, let me try that again. Instead of 861, 891. And we have a balance of $20,138. Okay. So that is how you would do this type of question. Basically, like I said in class, you're going to just look at the items that are different and basically add or subtract those back into the balance to get to a balance that reconciles.